My wife, Vanessa, started acting different about 6 months before everything collapsed. At first, it was subtle. Longer hours at work, new clothes she suddenly cared deeply about, and strange comments about living life freely. We had been married for 9 years, and I trusted her enough not to question every change. Marriage, to me, meant giving someone room to grow without treating them like a suspect. Still, something felt off. Conversations became shorter, affection became rarer, and whenever I asked if something was wrong, she always smiled and said, "You worry too much." I wanted to believe her. Maybe that was my mistake. Love makes you patient, sometimes too patient. Looking back now, the warning signs weren't hidden at all. I just kept choosing hope over instinct because I believed loyalty still meant something between us. The conversation happened on a Thursday evening while we sat in the kitchen after dinner. Vanessa looked strangely nervous, tapping her fingers against her coffee mug like someone rehearsing words internally before speaking them out loud. "Can I ask you something unusual?" she said carefully. I nodded, expecting bad news about work or family. Instead, she took a slow breath and said something I genuinely wasn't prepared for. "What would you think if I spent one night with someone else?" For a second, I honestly thought I misheard her. She quickly added, "Not emotionally, just physically. It wouldn't mean anything." The room went silent in a way I'll never forget. Not dramatic silence. The kind that quietly changes everything before either person realizes it has already happened. She started explaining quickly, almost defensively. "I read articles," she said. "Some couples do this. It's about honesty and freedom." Freedom. Strange word to use while asking permission to break something sacred. I noticed she kept avoiding eye contact. That told me more than her explanation ever could. This wasn't random curiosity. She had already thought about it deeply. Maybe even someone specific. What surprised her most wasn't anger from me. It was calm. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Didn't panic. I simply leaned back in my chair and looked at her quietly for a long moment. She seemed uncomfortable with my silence, like she had prepared herself for a fight but not stillness. Finally, she asked softly, "Why aren't you saying anything?" That was when I said the sentence that changed everything. Calmly. Clearly. No emotion in my voice. "You can do whatever you want," I told her. "But understand something first. If you need another man for even one night, then this marriage ends permanently the same day." Silence followed immediately. Real silence. Vanessa blinked at me like she wasn't sure she had heard correctly. "Wait," she said quickly. "Why are you making it so extreme?" I stayed calm. "I'm not making anything extreme," I replied. "I'm just being honest about my boundary." Somehow, honesty unsettled her more than anger would have. Because anger can be negotiated. Boundaries usually can't. At first, she laughed nervously, trying to soften the moment. "You're being dramatic," she said. "I'm just asking for honesty." But something had shifted already. The confidence she carried into the conversation began fading. "You wouldn't seriously throw away 9 years over one mistake?" she asked quietly. I looked at her carefully. "No," I replied. "I'd be walking away because of the choice behind it." That distinction mattered. People call things mistakes when they happen accidentally. This wasn't accidental. This was planned, discussed, requested. And somehow, saying it out loud seemed to affect her more than anything else. She looked suddenly uncertain, like the fantasy in her head had collided with consequences she never expected to feel real. The next few days felt strangely quiet between us. Vanessa acted unsettled, distracted, checking my mood constantly without directly mentioning the conversation again. But something inside me had already changed. Not anger. Clarity. I started noticing things I had ignored before. Secretive texting. Sudden defensiveness whenever certain names came up. Emotional distance disguised as stress. I wasn't obsessing anymore. I was observing. And once you stop emotionally chasing explanations, patterns become easier to see. One evening, while she showered, her phone buzzed repeatedly on the kitchen counter. I didn't even want to look. But curiosity mixed with intuition is a dangerous thing. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize, and one message that explained everything. "Did you ask him yet?" The message read, You deserve happiness too. That was enough. Not proof of betrayal exactly, but proof the conversation wasn't theoretical. Someone had already been waiting, planning, hoping. I sat there quietly longer than I expected, staring at the message without feeling shocked anymore. Just tired. Suddenly, her nervousness from earlier made perfect sense. She wasn't asking permission to explore an idea. She was asking permission for someone specific. And maybe she expected me to fight for her harder, negotiate, compromise, panic. Instead, I calmly put the phone back exactly where it was and sat down. Because somehow, the truth hurt less than uncertainty had. That night, I finally brought it up calmly. Was there already someone? I asked quietly while we sat in the living room. Vanessa froze immediately. That hesitation told me everything before she even spoke. It's not what you think, she started quickly. I nodded slowly. That usually means it's exactly what I think, I replied. Her eyes filled with panic now. Not guilt exactly, but fear of consequences becoming real. Nothing happened, she insisted. I swear. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe she wasn't. But emotionally, something had already crossed a line. And deep down we both knew it. Weeks later, everything unraveled faster than either of us expected. Counseling didn't work because trust doesn't repair easily once respect starts cracking. Vanessa grew emotional, apologetic, desperate to explain herself differently. I never thought you'd actually leave, she admitted one night. That sentence stayed with me. Because deep down, I think she believed love meant tolerance without limits. That loyalty meant endless forgiveness no matter what line got crossed. But love without boundaries slowly becomes self-abandonment. And I had finally learned the difference. The life Vanessa thought she had, the marriage, stability, certainty, didn't collapse because of one sentence. It collapsed because of what the sentence revealed. Sometimes relationships don't end during betrayal itself. They end in the moment someone realizes they're no longer protecting the same values. I stayed calm through all of it. No screaming. No revenge. Just truth spoken clearly the moment it mattered most. And somehow, that quiet honesty changed everything more completely than anger ever could.